general assistance? Excellent. All right, I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Jetty for an overview of the budget.
Okay, I just want to, so we're not seeing the presentation there. Was there, but it disappeared.
The PowerPoint, the slide? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, bear with us. Bear with us, we thought we had the tech figured out. We are trying to make this available to budget committee members and school board members who are home, and also to everybody here, so. Thank you, it's good to have Jason back with us to help out with those little things, so thank you. So welcome everybody. I just want to acknowledge we're following a little bit of a different format this year. So the school administrative team has been hard at work developing a budget presentation to bring forward to the school board, and we've invited the budget committee to join us for that presentation in the hopes that we can do the presentation and allow everybody to see what the thinking is, so that when it turns over to the budget committee a week from today, the budget committee will be able to pick the ball up and to start running with it without representing a lot of the myriad details, because they'll pick those up as we go along. So it's a little bit of a different format. We hope it's going to work. And we'll be looking for feedback at the end of it all. So just a couple of reminders for the board. This is one of those things that we do once a year, and so it's important, I think, to just pause and ask why we go about this. And so what we're bringing forward tonight is a budget for the town in order to operate the school system in the town. And you'll see there are several components here. We're going to talk about revenues and changes that we're seeing relative to revenues. And I will share with the town that we've been very aggressive at looking at revenue sources that have come our way, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've looked for ways that we can help to fund things that we need to do within our schools, and you'll hear details about that today. So it's not just about spending, it's also about accessing the resources in order to provide for the budget. You will see that there's a pretty detailed expenditure framework laid out with there are names in there, there are specific items that are mentioned in the budget that we intend to purchase in order to fulfill our mission in the next year. And so that ends up making up the entire budget with all the details that are there. And finally, there's an educational strategy, which is our long-term plan. Where do we want to see the Litchfield School District continue to move? And how do we have the budget pull off and help us succeed with that long-term educational strategy and plan? So a few things to note is that we see the budget process, when we begin this at our retreat in August, we see this as a process to compel our team to plan, and that it will motivate our team to look at student performance and ask for ways that we can make improvements based on what we're seeing. So budgeting is just one of our critical strategies in order to make sure the school district is achieving at the best level that it can. The major goals that we're involved in right now are, first of all, facility planning. And I'll speak specific to the high school, which is the newest school in the district. But the newest school is 20 years old, and there are needs in a 20-year-old building when you've had thousands of people coming through it. And so there is some planning taking place here. Our middle school is 35 years old. And there are more needs that have occurred over the 35 years that we're now engaged in pretty deep conversation in planning for the next 35 years of life at Litchfield Middle School. And how do we stabilize the physical environment and make sure that it's going to set the town up to serve as well in the next 35 as it has for the past 35. And then finally, there's Griffin Elementary School, which we're engaged in a very deep dive study to understand what the needs are there and what the best course of action is. We engaged in a capital planning process over the last year, and that capital planning process involved the town, and the town identified Griffin as a top priority for needing to be addressed. And ultimately, our goal is to bring forward a responsible plan to replace the current Griffin. And so we're involved in the deep discussions about how to do that properly, economically, and in order to set the town up for another 50 years of Griffin. So that's the work that we're engaged in currently, and we need a budget that will support our efforts as we undergo that work. A second major goal has been the COVID-19 response. So we have to remember that prior to March 13th, many of us had no idea what was coming, and this forced us to change, and the overused word is to pivot in ways that we didn't anticipate, but we needed to make sure that we were able to respond to the situation that came at us and continues to come at us. Every day, our team sits down and engages in a deep dive into what's happening in the local level, what do the numbers look like, how are we doing as a town and a school district, and we need to make sure that the budget is able to support us as we continue to flex and improve with this situation that is coming our way. A third thing to remind people of are the safety improvements that we've been instituting in our schools. So the new entryway at Litchfield Middle School is currently being completed. That will be done by mid-December so that we can apply for the state infrastructure reimbursement that we have waiting for us relative to help pay for a portion of that project. And that will help to secure the building and make sure that the entryway to the middle school is comparable to what you find at Griffin and here at the high school. So safety improvements are something that we continue to meet with. In fact, we have an emergency management meeting tomorrow morning with the town to just talk about safety and make sure that we stay on the right path relative to safety in our schools. So those are three major themes of things that we're engaged in addition to all the other educational programs that we are involved with. And then I'd just like to remind everybody that at the heart of this, we are a people business. We serve the children of the town, and our biggest asset to help us do that are the teachers, the employees, the food service workers, the custodians, all the people who help to drive the Litchfield School District going forward. So roughly 80% of our budget goes into people and supporting people who then support the educational mission of the school. And we just have to remember that at the core of the numbers, there are people behind those numbers. I want to talk for a second about enrollment. We have done an enrollment projection. I will check which screen I'm on here. Sorry, I had it over here. And so this has been an ongoing enrollment projection going back to the 2007-2008 school year. At that point, you can see that the Litchfield School District was at 1,658 students. We were projected this year to come in with 1,300 students. And that's because last year we had 1,307. So there's been a decline over the period of time, and we were projecting 1,300. Our actual number this year is 1,225. So it was 75 shy of that number. We believe that a lot of that is driven, again, by the COVID-19 pandemic. There are, if you take a look, you can see that the kindergarten number was way under what was projected. And part of that is that kindergarten is not required. There were many families who told us, we're just going to take a year and stay at home. We're just going to educate at home. It's not something that's required for us to participate in. And our work balance at home has shifted, so this is something that we can do. So we do think that's a portion of it. And we know there are other families who opted to, because of the uncertainty of how we were going to open and what we were going to offer and how long we were going to be able to offer it, they opted for other educational environments for a year, at least. And parents have told us that they've done a temporary withdrawal, waiting to see what happens with the pandemic and then they come back. So it's certainly a big unknown and an uncertainty that we are wrestling with, and you can see it there in the enrollment numbers. I will say that the overall trend that we're looking at can get skewed a little bit because this uses an averaging approach. And you know, when you have a year that that seems like an anomaly, then how does that trigger forward into the future? And it's something that we just have to stay on top of. But part of our building study work relative to Griffin involves a deeper dive into enrollment projections. And what we are hearing right now is that the enrollment projections are going to level off. So the early look at this is that we're going to in fact level off about where we are. So 1,300 I think is probably a fair number for us to keep in mind going forward. Looking down in the chart, we then take the numbers that we see of actual students in seats, counting those noses, and we say what is the impact of those going forward. And basically, this chart is the key one. Our sense is that next year we're predicting that we will need an additional first grade teacher, but that we will offset that through one less second grade teacher. So the net change of staffing at Griffin will be 0 as we shuffle from one grade to another. That's what we're predicting to occur. And this is taking the assumptions of kind of a return from COVID, which again, you know, it depends on who you listen to. Some people are saying that we're going to come out of this in the spring. Others are saying not until deep into next year will there be some sort of a recovery or return to normal or common vaccine available. So all those things are question marks, right? We're just making projections. But right now we are predicting that it will be an offset of a transfer within to meet the needs there. And the middle school numbers are also projected to stay flat, and so there is not a staffing need that is there. And a reminder that these are based on our policy, the school board policy, which has very specific trigger points in it. And so this document is available, and anybody who clicks on the link can see what the trigger points are that then drive that decision making. So the bottom line with all of that is that we're predicting a relatively flat enrollment for next year, and that we factored that into the budgeting that you're going to see later tonight. So another reminder that I always make at this point is that we are developing a budget today that is going to begin. The very first penny to spend out of it is 8 months from now. And that budget will then have to be in place and support our efforts for 20 months from now. So we certainly engage in a lot of dialogue, a lot of deep discussions about it, and recognizing that along the way there are a lot of unexpected things that can come our way. A reminder to the public that we have taken a very, I think, responsible approach to budgeting. The board has taken a very responsible approach. We For example, with the COVID-19 pandemic, when we suddenly shut down, we chose to shut down 2 schools and to save costs at those sites and to consolidate district services the best we could to Campbell, to this school. And that as a result of that and other measures along the way, we were able to identify about $700,000 that we were able to return to the taxpayers. And so the point is that we didn't have a budget that we felt we needed to spend down. We said, okay, this curveball has come our way. How do we take this curveball and do the best and most responsible thing that we can with it? And there's another unique nuance in it where the voters had come forward a few days prior to the shutdown and supported all our initiatives. They said, this is the budget that you're asking for, these are the initiatives you're asking for, we're going to support you with those. And we're pretty convinced that many people didn't see what was coming around the next corner also. So we felt it was important that we recognize that town folk who had supported us really were doing so on good faith, and when conditions changed, when people lost jobs, when businesses shut down, that we had an obligation to be supported back and to be very responsible with the budget, therefore producing that $700,000 return to the town. And that's the sort of thing you do when you're in a small community. You support each other. We appreciate the support that we get from the community toward the school, and the board and the administrative team felt it was our turn to also support the community back when everything was thrown up in the air, and it was really quite a mess at that point in time with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety that went with it. So we need to develop a budget that is sort of flexible enough to enable the unforeseen thing to come. So when the tree falls on the power line and the major circuit at Griffin gets blown out and it costs $50,000 to replace it like that, we need a budget that can help support us, and we tried to develop an overall plan in order to do that. So things like contingency funds, et cetera, that we can dip into. So we just need to continue that partnership, I think, because there are unexpected things that can come our way. And at that point, I'm going to turn this over to Business Administrator Corey Isbicki, and he'll guide us through the next stage of the budget development process.
Come out from behind my DJ station and speak from up here. Good evening, school board members, long time no see, and welcome to the budget committee members. Thank you for coming out tonight to hear our presentation. Before I get into it, I just want to preface it with a couple things. When I speak to numbers and percentages within my presentation, I'm going to be working in round numbers and percentages. There's more detail that's available in the documents that I provided, and documents that I will provide to the budget committee as well as we get through this process. What I'm going to be doing tonight is, if there's any board actions taken tonight or Tuesday night, whatever outcomes come, I'm going to be updating in real time with the urgency of turning it around and getting to the budget committee as quickly as possible when we complete our work on Tuesday night. As Mike said, we kick off our budget process at the admin retreat each August. We're preparing a budget this year to operate and staff our schools appropriately during unprecedented times and uncertainty surrounding when the pandemic is going to change and when we can actually get back to normal. Within those meetings, we quickly identified a few things that we knew were certain, that introducing new spending in a time of the pandemic and uncertainty wouldn't fly in the town of Litchfield. The educational environment has forever changed, not just for Litchfield, but for everywhere, which really heightens the importance of the need to adapt and technology in order to best educate our students and support our staff. And traditionally, we would use 3 to 5 year averages to kind of calculate and analyze our budget. We don't feel that that is a really accurate tool in this situation with such an anomaly happening in FY20, and that continues into this year as things come up and we spend money on things that we didn't necessarily plan for. When we closed the schools down, as Mike noticed, we closed 2 locations, and that produced significant savings in the areas of professional development, utilities, transportation, among others, resulting in the return of the $700,000 to the taxpayers. Based on this, as we got into working onto the budgets, we asked that each building administrator and the director review their FY20 approved budget and work within those parameters, level funding the budget where possible. And in past years, I've asked, when they're going in to look at supplies and stuff, that we would apply the consumer price index. We did not do that this year. So as those budgets came in, I think you'll see that we did accomplish that, resulting in a savings of about $360,000 from last year to this year within the budget, about 7%. I provided a department-by-department summary within the documents that I give, showing the percentage change in each area, and I've included with those departments where usually we look at salaries and benefits as one lump sum in the budget, and one particular budget. I did break it down on that form by location, by department. There's also a summary of budget activity, the things that have taken place from the initial budget meetings with the directors and building administrators, and all the activity that me and the superintendent engaged in to get to where we are tonight. So we're presenting the superintendent's budget tonight. There's a group of items within that budget activity that were pulled out, as we've done in the past, to consider for year-end funding. I provided that as well. If there are additional items that the board would also like to see removed from the operational budget and put in that list as well for year-end consideration, we can absolutely do that. As Mike stated, the impact of COVID-19 and the resulting school closure, and along with savings generated by the school closure, as we plan for reopening, we faced a new set of challenges to be overcome in the best interest of the health and safety of our students and staff. Prior to the shutdown, we had started broad discussions with energy consultants about an energy efficiency project with the goal of long-term savings. That quickly transitioned into a project where we've begun work on our ventilation system and HVAC and control systems at all three buildings that have been inadequate. Sorry, I'm following my notes. A lot of information, so I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. To date, on those projects, we've either expended or encumbered a total of $167,000 towards the repair, replacement of equipment, replacement of filters, and recommission of our control systems. This work has brought the systems back to working where they're supposed to be, and will continue, because now as the systems are functioning correctly, additional challenges may be discovered, and we may have to continue that work. So we will continue to engage with David Ely and Dick Henry, who are energy consultants, and Viking Controls, who was actually the original programmer of this control system in this building, who came in and got it back to where it should have been in the first place. We'll continue until there was a lot of deferred maintenance, and we'll continue until all those issues are resolved. As I noted before, the budget, not including personnel, was down 7%. The overall budget is up about 4%, representing about $831,000. There's a significant increase in personnel in the amount of $1.1 million. The causes of this are contractual and statutory. There's a significant rate increase from the New Hampshire retirement system, 18% to the rate that we pay towards teachers' retirement, and 26% to other employees in the district. This alone accounts for $440,000. The second year of each of the CBAs for both the associations were heavier in the second year in regards to salary schedules. That impact is being felt as well. That's about $585,000. So those two items alone account for about $1 million of that increase. We did budget for a 5% increase in health insurance. That's based on the recommendation of school care. The actual rates are expected within 7 to 10 days, and I would anticipate an adjustment to that amount within the budget. Along with preparing the superintendent's budget that we're presenting tonight, I simultaneously prepared the default budget. The summary of that is provided in the information that I provided to the board and will give to the budget committee. I'll remind you the default budget is at the discretion of the school board after reviewing it, and if you'd like to see any adjustments made, things that I may have overlooked, please let me know and we can make those adjustments. The current proposed budget, our superintendent's budget, is currently $181,000 above that default calculation. As Mike had stated, there's a couple different sources of revenue that we've seen this year, one of which being the Supplemental Public School Response Fund that represents $200 per student at the enrollment level of October 1st, 2019, which was $1,266. They're going with that number because, as Mike mentioned, the impact of COVID. School districts are losing kids. They want to make sure that we get the maximum of what we can out of that reimbursement. Now, when I say reimbursement, this is actually an odd grant where it's a prepaid reimbursement grant. So we can use things that we have purchased based on COVID-19, which would be all the supplies, the PPE, the cleaning materials that we've purchased, a lot of the ventilation work that we've done. We have to submit for that reimbursement by December 1st, and we have to have the money expended by December 30th. So it's going to be a quick turnaround on that, but we've done significant work, and it shouldn't be a problem to maximize that amount that we get. We also did have our vote on September 16th, where the voters allowed us to take the fiscal disparity funding of $650,000 and put that in our capital reserve fund. That will be used towards a lot of the projects that we need to get after here at the schools. With that, that's my opening presentation. If anyone has any questions for me, now I thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Corey?
Thank you.
All right. So good evening, everyone, again. For those of you who have not sat through this process with us in the past, basically what we'll do is we'll take each budget, we'll go page by page. If any members have any concerns or questions or suggestions for any cuts, that they'll make a motion to do so. One thing I just want to mention, that throughout this budget, there are different line items for PPE items, COVID-19 related expenditures, that I've asked Corey that, and hopefully he can do it soon, to pull those out, or at least like highlight them all or get them in a separate segment, not knowing where we're going to be next year, in the hopes that we're not there next year or here, and those expenditures would be singled out, and those items would, those totals would be returned to the taxpayers. So it's not monies that we say, okay, we have $50,000 here we're not spending, let's go ahead and use them. It's similar to the conversation we had last year with kindergarten, the expenses of kindergarten, the additional teacher and expenses, that it's not right if we have items that are signified for one particular area that we go ahead and turn around and use those. But you'll find those within the budget, and we deem them necessary, and that's why they're in there. Again, the unknown, hopefully we don't need them. So with that, we're going to begin with the high school CHS. And like I said, we'll just do each page, and if anyone has anything, then we'll just go right through them. So those of you at home, if anyone's listening and hasn't seen the agenda, we are going to go through Campbell High School, Litchfield Middle School, Griffin Memorial, Curriculum, Technology, and Special Services this evening. So I'll turn it to you, Mr. Lonigan, if you want to start, and then we'll go through your budget.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for coming. It's good to see you all again, even though you're on my backside here. I want to give you a sort of a broad overview, talk about some of the drivers of the budget, and then and then talk about some of the sort of increases and decreases, just so you have a sense of that before we dig into it. We've mentioned COVID. Certainly COVID is a significant challenge, not just in our day-to-day operations, but also thinking about predicting what we're going to spend moving forward. So certainly that's made it a little bit challenging, a little bit different. Our enrollment this year was anticipated to be 433 students. We're actually at 446 students currently, so we're up 13 students, which is nice. However, there's an anticipated drop next year for 22 students. So we have 112 seniors leaving, and we have 89 eighth graders transitioning up to ninth grade. So about 22 students will be at Campbell next year. Still, we're anticipating typical high school programming. We're a nice comprehensive high school for the kids in Litchfield. And the idea for us is try to offer as many courses as we can to students using the resources we have. It's been a little bit challenging this year. We have one fewer social studies and one fewer English teacher. So as a result, it's a little difficult sometimes finding the right electives for students. So I'm a little bit concerned about that as we move forward, if we do have continued declining enrollments. So this year, I spoke about COVID. We've done some interesting things in terms of COVID this year. Our science teachers we purchased a lab program called Labster, which allows students both within the building and outside to do labs virtually. We've had to adjust. We've had our music teachers who have had to purchase about $3,000 worth of PPE for the music students, for instruments, for voices, for cleanings at the end of last year. So certainly it's impacted some of the things we've had to do at Campbell this year. But the goal is to come up with a budget we think that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about some of the drivers. My hope is that transportation will be a challenge next year, because my hope is that we have students going on trips to leadership conferences and workshops. We have athletics moving all around the state and not just confined to the southern part of New Hampshire. And certainly I'm anticipating if the pandemic's gone, we'll have that opportunity. Science is always a budget driver. Their budget is significant in terms of material supplies, equipment. But even with that this year, they've done a nice job of decreasing their budget a little bit. We're continuing to send students to Pinkerton and Albert, and we think it's really important they have the CTE opportunities, and certainly that's a significant function in our budget. And one other thing is we hope to have Challenge Day next year. We budgeted for it this year, but given where we are with respect to the pandemic, I'm not certain that we're going to be able to do that in the spring. So our hope was to do this every other year. Right now, you know, it's been a while since we've done it, so we did continue to keep that in the budget. In terms of sort of the increases, I spoke about transportation, library software, we had a small increase there. Again, music, PPE, that added about $3,000 to their budget this year for the 21-22 school year. We're looking to purchase a tabletop potter's wheel for the ceramics program. It's one of our really popular courses right now. We have 2 standalones, but it'd be nice to have another one to make sure we can get more of the students involved. Some of the decreases, I mentioned science department, certainly they've done a good job of bringing all their equipment up to a status where they can share them within the various science classrooms and have enough probes and stereoscopes and microscopes, so that's a nice position to be in where we can sort of level them off with it. Our shop, our wood shop, we've updated all our machinery in there, so this year we basically have a couple of small power tools that we want to replace, so they're down. Family and consumer science is down as well, and so we've got some, overall I think our budget is about 5,500 less, which is about 0.89% from what it was this current year. But again, I think the major challenge we're going to see is, you know, the pandemic, keeping students safe, and hopefully having an opportunity to move past this during the 21-22 school year. So my overview is complete. I'd be more than happy to talk about the budget going line by line.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll start with page 1.
I had a question on page 1.
What's usual one?
I can use my hand again.
Yeah, that way you can.
Bill, I had a question. General supplies,
Yep.
it cites $22 and change for 445 students.
Does it say 445?
It does.
It does. The one I'm looking at, the current one I'm looking at shows 426 students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Corey, what do you have for that number? For under general supplies?
610.
Yeah.
17 more.
Yeah, so that number's wrong now.
We changed that to 426.
Yes, it's just the
change.
Okay. So it's just the number?
94.99.
It's reflected in the one that I'm looking
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just a typo.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything else on page one?
Yeah, Bill, I guess my question would be, we've got a fiscal year of 2019, we're one-to-one, we've been going down, and all of a sudden we budgeted above anything we spent, not including last year, 3,800 above 19 and 800 above 18. Why are we going up with one-to-ones?
Quite frankly, I think what we did is we adjusted this actually to what it was cut last year. We adjusted it back upwards to where we were. We didn't spend as much last year, you will notice that. But I adjusted that a little bit upward. So is there a specific number in there that you're,
I'm just looking, I guess I'm looking to spend the last, with one-to-ones, the last full year we had, we spent 13.7 in 2019. I'm just wondering, with one-to-ones, the cost going down, do we need to have that much lower?
I'm not looking at the budget across from through or everything, so let me take a look if you wouldn't mind, I'll grab my binder.
You want 610, Ross?
Yeah, I'm on line 610. I can see, we spent 16.5 in 2018, 13.7 in 2019. I'm
Well, I
not
think-
counting, can't count last year. I'm just wondering, do we need 17,000?
No, you know what, I'm just gonna expedite this a little bit, I'm gonna make a motion to reduce that line by $1,030, so it's level funded to last year. I know the budget committee spent quite a bit of time on supplies and reducing the numbers, and to the point we felt, we couldn't go any further, but I don't think we need to go further north.
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything new that we were looking at.
No.
No. But I made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that's Tara.
Robots.
So the motion carries 500. Anything else on page one? Page two? Page three?
Oh, I have a question. Bill, do you happen to know, and this is complete, you might not know this, how many students partake in Spanish in the high school? Like, are there 50 kids, are there 100? I know there are four levels of Spanish being taught,
Yes,
correct?
yep, and when you get to Spanish before, you get down to 8 students
Yeah,
by that point.
but I'm assuming most students, freshman and sophomore year, you have to take at least 2 years if you want to go to a four-year school.
Typically, it's 3, depending on the four-year school, but yes. Yeah, so boy, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I'd be more than willing to send you an email and let you know that number.
No, I'm just curious because you budgeted $435. And last year you budgeted $1,300.
Yeah, they were more comfortable using some of the electronic programs, computer applications and things like that. We purchased workbooks and Spanish workbooks and things like that last year. So Heather and Liz think they can manage with that. But in fact, we met with both of them when we were doing the budgeting, and they were quite comfortable with that.
Yeah, I watched Liz a lot of lessons. She was very tech savvy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So on page three?
I'm all set.
I'm going to make a motion on page three. Again, 610 supplies. Last year we're at 988. This year, for some reason, we're at 1361. We're going to be rolling in with 24 less students. I'm going to make a motion to reduce that line by 500 to 861.
Brian, what account was that?
610, English
English,
supplies.
okay,
Oh,
okay.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 500. 500 to 861. Reducing 610 to 861. Anything else on page 3? Page 4?
Can I ask a question, Jason? When we see Cook and Woolley and all of these in here, should we be buying these by school, or are there?
You need the mic off.
Uh-oh, red. Oh, wait a minute.
Should I put a mask on?
I'm already having.
Jason, my question is just, we always see the different technology subscriptions throughout the different budgets. Should those be centralized under one budget instead of by school, or are there discounts if we do it by district, or should it be by school?
So we divvy it up depending on the function of that software. So who's involved? Like if it involves like a database and importing all of the students and doing a lot of maintenance for that software to be up to date or to get the kids in, usually that falls under IT. But if it's kind of like a simple subscription, the buildings have that. So, but I can go and look through those and just verify if there's bulk discounts or anything like that on that board.
Page 5. So I just had a question, and Corey, you could probably find out, you don't have to answer right now. But as far as foods, and I don't know if I may have asked this question in the past, have we ever considered going to food services for the food or facts? Do you know offhand?
I think they do in certain situations. I think she has ordered a few things, but I don't think to a large degree.
Well, I just know like Lauren has changed the menu quite a bit, and there's a lot more fresh food involved, so I didn't know if there was more of an opportunity to buy, through food service where they're buying in bulk anyway, that possibly could reduce your costs. Just something to inquire.
It's a great thought. Lauren also is taking advantage of food through the state that I don't think we could use in that way, so it's just one thing to be sensitive to with that
Right.
ask. But we could look into it.
And Liz, 198 students.
Wow.
You want to
Thank you.
increase the budget, or are you all set?
If that's the number they're comfortable with, they have what they need.
Yep.
Wow.
Page 6.
Actually, can we back up? Can we back up for a minute, Brian? Line 610 for fax supplies,
What page?
page 5
Yep.
at the bottom. I know it's level funded with the 21 budget. Why is it such a big increase from the approved 2020?
We went, remember initially, we did not want students to pay for their.
Oh,
travel
that's right.
expenses.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep, thank you for reminding me.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
So page 6.
Actually, I think, can we clarify that just with the budget committee so they understand?
Well, I think, yeah, because we've been doing this since like the third year, or second year, that in the past, we've charged students that took fax for the food. And there were other courses that we don't charge them for items that are required for that. So we felt that it was right that we don't charge them, that that's part of the course. So page 7. So I have a question on page 7, which rolls into page 8 as far as an explanation. So before I make my reduction, it says, these costs are all to have in the school, brass. So it's just saying it's essential during the pandemic. So again, that would be one of those costs, I'm not looking to make a reduction, but that'd be one of those items that would be reduced, or should I say, given back if not needed.
Which account was that? Was that the using?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Music repair maintenance.
Correct.
right? Because they have an increase of 1,400, and I know the majority of that is going to be for
Masks
the
and
pandemic and whatever else we need. And so those are the kind of items that I'm asking Corey to like pull out and segregate. So,
Yeah, I think the thing, I'll go through the budgets,
Yeah.
and I think Tina had made the suggestion of moving it into a district-wide emergency management supply line.
yeah,
And that's where I can grab all that stuff.
thank you.
And that includes sort of the intensive cleanings to do on instruments as
Right.
well, and that's kind of a little different. I'm not sure if that would necessarily change.
I think it's more the specialized PPE for music, I think
Right.
we want to encompass that.
Page 8. The same thing on category 610 supplies. I know they're,
Which account though?
but I'm not making a reduction, I'm just making a notation. It's like another $1,500, so, I mean, they're all, like I said, it's all over the budget, throughout the budget.
Yep.
Page 9.
Yes. I don't know if I misread it. The 50 smart music connection books at $12 each.
What they did is they upgraded to the premium level of that. So it's more functional with respect to students being able to use it. It's more functional with respect to teachers being able to teach students individually as well as among peers.
That's $600.
I'm sorry?
It's $1,000, that's $600, 50 times 12. Just,
Oh,
Did you share mine?
yeah,
did I miss something? I don't know if I missed something.
yeah, no, I'm not certain either. And I'm not looking at the same budget that you are, so hold on one second. It may have been an error in Carolyn providing that information. I'll go back to my notes in my office and look to see what I have down for the music for that.
Page 9. Page 10. So page 10, again, 610 supplies. We have an increase of $700, and we're going to have a reduction in enrollment. So I'm making a motion to reduce that line by $1,000.
Which account was that from?
That's 610.
Under science.
Science? Okay.
Last year was 13.3, I'm going to bring it down to 13.
13, if I said it that, oh.
I'll second it, but I wanted to ask the question. Is that because of the addition of AP Physics?
That's correct. Yep.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries 5-0-0. Anything else on page 9? I'm sorry, page 10? Page 11. So and I think I've asked this in the past, line 640, maybe it's just the descriptor on it, but loss/replacement of text, then it says 8 courses. So these are books that are lost
These are
by
books.
students.
So what happens is when the students lose them, is they have to pay for them before they graduate. When they pay for them, it doesn't go back in the school's account, it goes back to the general revenue account. Yeah. So we have to still purchase.
So you don't show, you get reimbursed, but this thing shows.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the town.
Line 644, Labster. Tell me about Labster.
Yep, so this is the new virtual lab program that we purchased for all the science classrooms, for all the science students. So whether they're in the classroom or they're remote, every student can use this in order to do virtual labs in the science classes. Okay. So which now makes it, we can do real labs, hands-on with chemicals and animals and those things, but we can also have students doing that virtually at home, or students doing it virtually in the classroom.
Is that something that we purchased for COVID? And is it likely to still be in use once we pass through the pandemic?
I actually think it will.
Yeah.
I think the science teachers really like it, and really like what it provides for them, because it's more opportunities to do some of those other experiments that you may not be able to do in your classroom with actual supplies.
Anything else on 11? Page 12? $13?
I had a question about the Potter's Wheel. Why is that under technical education?
Okay, so this is really interesting. A few years ago, technical education consisted both of graphic arts and the Woods program and the home improvements program. So we split them, but when we split them, we didn't split ceramics to the fine arts. So it's
Oh.
still in the fine arts.
Oh,
Yeah. Generally, if you look at the fine arts budget, you will see the clays and clays and all those things in the fine arts budget. But the teacher who teaches it teaches, so it's just a matter of
Okay.
it's there and it'll be gone.
I thought that might be the case.
Yep.
13? So I have a question on 734. Again, it may be just in the descriptor, but we've been trying to replace the older tablets. Some are still as old as 10 years old. In fiscal year 20, we're unable to purchase due to COVID-19, but they're in this year's budget. So I don't understand, is this something that every year you're purchasing, or?
She typically will upgrade them each year, and what happened was last year we didn't purchase them because all of a sudden we're out of school, we don't have them. So we included it in this year's budget to replace several that she has down there.
This is for graphic design?
14? So on 14, same thing, Bill, 610. Due to COVID-19, at the end of fiscal year 20, we did not use our entire toner cartridge supply and should have enough to get through 21, 22. Why are we budgeting again now?
I think it decreased. Did it not decrease that?
Yeah, $50.
No. Whose account was that?
Computer.
Okay, I couldn't tell you why it's only $50. Yeah. I'm assuming that Sean looked at what he had and decided that that would be an appropriate amount.
Right, but it sounds like he's got a few toners or,
We do.
which we know that are more than $50, so I'm gonna hold off on making that, but if you can like get back to me before I make the motion to reduce that line. Anything else on 14? 15? 16? 17? So the same thing on page 17, I would put in the same category as far as COVID items, where it's a large expense for Challenge Day. And hopefully we do end up having it, but I think that's one of those items too that if we don't use it, we give it back. That's my personal feeling, and that's something the board can discuss when we get to that point, but it's a large expense and hopefully that we can get through. But the chances are this year, I would say are slim to none, so that probably would roll into the next one.
Where's the grant?
That is
890.
890, miscellaneous, last line.
I actually had the same note for the mock accidents, pep rallies, and those kinds of events that happen in the spring. I mean, I don't know where we'll be in the spring of '22.
It's all up in the air right now, which is unsettling for sure.
And just a note for the board, we had moved some of the challenge day into grants that were available, but then when it didn't occur, we had to reallocate the grant money. So it's the kind of thing that if we can do it, and if the units are available, we can make that shift.
So the next one is game officials. I apologize if I asked this in the past, but on each sport, there's a mileage stipend for travel.
Right. So what happens is if the team makes it into the state tournament, you have to have a school official at those sites. Josh usually goes, but occasionally I will go or Mike will go. I typically don't expect the reimbursement when I go to them, but certainly others do.
So Corey, if I can just ask, just for future use, can we possibly make a notation if that's for the admin team? Because it's listed under officials, so I'm looking at we're paying officials, additional travel expense.
Well, there is some of that involved with officials who travel over 30, 35 miles to an athletic competition. They do get reimbursed more money. So there's that piece.
So that's built in the cost for the officials.
Yes, but it's got to come out of the budget somewhere. Typically, it's $88 for an official for a match. But then if he comes from 50 miles away, you're paying a premium on top of that. So I don't know how Josh breaks that down in his budget, if it gets allocated to that mileage.
So I know this line was reduced last year, because I believe I made a motion to reduce it. Now it's right back up, so is there an expectation that we're going to be going all the way on all our championships?
If the weather's right, and people are breathing and upright, that's my hope. We've got talented kids.
Isn't part of the cost increase due to the officials associations? They've increased their fees also.
Do you know what the percentage increase is?
It's $3 or $4 a game.
It doesn't equate to $5,000.
Probably not that much. Josh is at a tournament game tonight.
Yeah, they want to, by the way.
Volleyball is
The girls, soccer.
awesome. Yep, I haven't heard of volleyball yet.
So, yeah.
That was volleyball, isn't it?
I'm going to make a motion on line 391. I'm going to reduce line 391 by $4,000 to $32,434.
Sorry, can you say where we are?
Yeah, we're on,
Again?
yeah, so on page 17, the bottom line, game officials.
Okay.
And what was your motion? What was the amount?
Reduced by $4,000 to $32,434. And Rob second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
It makes me laugh.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries 5-0-0. Page 19.
Hey, Bill, can I just clarify that 610 supplies, $6,500, that does not include replacement banners?
No, it does not. No. In fact, we didn't even consider that this year.
It does. So why is the 2020 actual so high on supplies? 48,000.
So it was actually about $30,000. And then there were unexpended funds, I think, where we got approval to spend money on, well, it's a little complicated and confusing. One thing that occurred during that school year was we have to recondition our football helmets every year. Okay, so when the former athletic director was here, he did not recondition the footballs usually you do it in May, June, okay? Didn't happen, so it happened in August, which was a new budget year. So it was done in August, and it had to get done in the next spring. So there was about $7,000, which was spent on, which came out of 1 year's budget, not over 2 years. So that was one piece of that. The other piece of that was they purchased cross-country uniforms, polo shirts for the golf team, and caps for the golf team, and gear for the coaches, I think, so the coaches would all have the same gear.
Okay.
And that was board approved at year end.
At your,
So it was year end funding, they did spend ahead. They did in June.
I remember that.
okay. I'm going to make a motion on line 610 to reduce it by $5,000.
I'll second.
By how much, 5?
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 500. Page 20. 21. 22.
I have a question on 21. Slow down, slow down. Hold your horses. So on page 21, line 734, I was wondering the
Which
the additional,
Which account?
734, the additional equipment for
Wait.
the weight room.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. Is this part of a replacement plan? That seems like a very big
It's
jump.
at the $4,000.
The
It's the
$4,000.
kettlebells, I
So
don't
part
think
of
they gotta know.
Part of it's kettlebells, part of it's racks for them as well.
Right. I thought we approved that last year.
I don't think we did. I think
No,
we cut it.
Did we?
No.
I thought we did.
I don't think we spent the money for those last year.
I think it was actually, I think it's a long-term purchase.
Okay.
There's some of it, and then there's more to come. I think it's a multi-year.
And
Okay.
if we were to go down and we look at the weight room, you'll notice
Yeah.
that there's space for things that we just can't put them on our racks and keep them safe. because
22. 23. 24. 25. 26. So my question on 26, 644, information access fees,
Is that for counseling?
Library.
library.
Library? Yep. So, go ahead.
I'm just questioning the increase.
Yeah, so Julie working with her library friends around the state, one of the new programs that they want to use is CLEO, okay, which is humanities, social studies. It's more relevant, more appropriate for kids today. So she wants to move towards that. One of her concerns is we use Gale, which is a really popular one, but it's also real pricey. The question is, is it worth it to purchase Clio? It seems like it would be, but you have to give up too much almost to dump the other service.
All right, you just talked about one service, Gale.
Sure, Gale, yes.
You said that she prefers this one over that one,
But
but yet you don't want to drop the other one.
it doesn't offer as much, Clio doesn't offer as much, it's more humanity-based.
I'm going to make a motion then to cut that line by 1,900.
For which one?
644,
I'll
information.
second.
Oh, the whole thing?
Can we just ask, Mike, we just asked, I think we asked last year and the last meeting.
Just talking to Mike.
What's up?
Need to talk to them.
I guess one of the things I'd just like to ask is, I know we had talked about EBSCO last year. Can they run a report, see how many hits some of these actually get, to see if we're getting bang for our buck?
I can actually I'll ask Julie.
I
to do
just,
that.
I know a lot of schools are still paying for EBSCO, and I don't think a lot of schools are still using EBSCO. So this is,
Can I just jump in, because I met Julie as well around this? Right now,
Yeah, you have to use the mic for the public to hear.
currently, a lot of the EBSCO stuff is still free because they changed it when the pandemic hit. So some of those things are being phased out, and some of them she's looking to replace with Clio so that it's, but I do know from my conversation with her about it, there are very subject-specific pieces to it that make it difficult to get rid of the whole thing in particular, that being Gale being one of them. There were specific subject areas that are, when she ran her usage reports, were using it significantly, and so to pull it, to replace it with something that would be more comprehensive and be able to get rid of some of the other pieces, it couldn't be done yet until we can see whether or not it's going to, the add-on to be able to cover some of the other areas. That was my
Yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And get Tara.
Tara?
Sorry, I'm opposed.
I'm opposed to.
Motion carries 3-2. 27. 28.
Sorry, I did have a question on 27. Line or section 737. We replaced a lot of the equipment last year, and I'm just wondering, was it all intended to be done last year, or is this, what is this, cafe height table and the leg stools? Do we have a multi-year plan for furniture there, or it just looks like we spent a lot on the library last year?
Sure. So first, we have a little bit more space, and these are two sort of high-top tables with chargers built into the tables, number one. The money we spent last year wasn't actually money spent for the money this year isn't money for the library. It's for the Learning Commons, which is the room next door. It's for the Media Center, which is the room next door. And if you've been in that room, you know what the tables,
Oh, yes.
the chairs look like. So it's to get rid of all of that old material equipment and to bring in something that's more conducive to having classes and meetings and things like that.
Okay, got it, that makes sense.
Okay.
So I have a question on 28, and it's on 550, student agendas.
Mhm. We print up a small number of them, primarily for our special education kids and our freshmen, for a freshman seminar. So that's the only, it's probably 100 to 125 bucks, that's it.
Do you really think freshmen right now need a paper agenda?
I think
special ed
some-
students do.
I think some do.
Especially, I'm asking if freshmen do.
I
Yeah.
think some of them are taught to use them. I know.
I'll leave them there when I'm cutting one of the two schools.
You're putting them out of the other two schools?
Really?
They need them in the other two schools.
Yes.
While we're on the subject, like $1,500 for tardy slips.
I thought they were printed off.
Are we getting to the point now we
That's what I was gonna bring up too.
can just use Google to have a spreadsheet or something that's up for our school, our school
Does
teacher?
stuff like that.
I would have to ask my IT director, one, our school ought to be able to do that, but when, in schools I've been at before, you have to have a printer that's aligned to that, that can print off the slip for the child, and I'm not sure if we have access within our school. Maybe
Well, just wondering, even if we print it out on a spreadsheet, and
That would be
I'm just
ideal.
wondering, $1,500 today.
No, it would be ideal, because we're talking, show your ID or punch in your ID, and boom, there's your slip for the class, and you minimize so many of the challenges of a late to school morning for students.
Isn't that what they do now? They come in, it looks like a cash register.
No, they're writing on a threefold,
Oh, that's when my
twofold
school's
form.
confused. That was when my school was.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
we could still do that in your school, right?
Yeah.
So since we're on tardy slips, and I know I asked this question last year, how many tardy slips does $1,500 buy you?
A lot. And how many do you need?
My son has 6 tardies, and his class is at 9 o'clock. I think we all can talk to that.
So we should
Yeah,
start
Just one
charging
kid.
it
We
down
can
there.
charge the McDonald's bill
Right,
for at
right.
least, just give me,
This is gonna cover that budget.
that's probably just for one son.
It would probably, absolutely, purchasing or whatever, if there's a printer that you can attach to Power School, and a kid punched in his ID number like he does in the cafeteria, or like we used to do in the cafeteria. Yeah.
Can you make a note to get back to us on that also before I make a cut? I know I've brought this up a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a way of this, especially with today's day and age.
Yeah, I actually looked last night because I flagged that too. There are plugins for Power School that have the tardy function on it.
29?
One of them I saw.
Sorry, sir, I thought you were done. You're like on a
I know, I was gonna, that's all right, I was gonna be, one I saw was like 14 cents per student per month, so it was actually less than the $1,500 a year.
So 29?
I had a question about 29, and this is kind of a district-wide observation. Travel looks like it's up next year. There's certain conferences that you're expecting to go to in 22.
I hope, I like going to conferences, so
Yeah.
typically I go to the national, and usually I go to the NHASP someone, okay? But, we don't know what it's gonna be, but yes, that's why that's up.
Would it be fair to level fund that with the 21 budget?
Probably.
Unless there is, I didn't know if there was a known increase.
Well, if you take, air trip somewhere, which isn't all that common right now, but if you have an opportunity, you're talking $400, $500, $600 for a flight. If Mike goes or I go to one of those, you're talking a hotel room for several days, so you could probably cut that down given where we are right now.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll hold off on that. Maybe that's like a bottom line district-wide cut.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll hold.
Excellent.
Jerry's getting over it.
We should point out it was 8 to 20 months away, and a lot of
Right.
administrators want to finish conferences for 3 years.
Page 30. $31. 32. 33. That's it. Anyone have any other questions for Ms. Lonigan?
Harry, can you give us a total of the cuts that you just made?
13,400.
What was that for?
13430. And I'll bring us to LNS and the select item.
Good evening, everyone. I'll do the same drill here that Bill just did, highlight a few things at the middle school, and then dive into our budget. So as you've probably seen, there's really not a whole lot changing significantly to the middle school budget. I did highlight a few things here. Science, when we get to that, I can talk about Project Lead the Way, refill kits. There are some increases in some of those refill kits. And as you know, we invested in Project Lead the Way a number of years ago with those original kits, and now it's just sustaining those kits over the years. Guidance, you'll see an increase related to 504 services. And there's a couple lines in guidance that are affected by that. To the conversation regarding PPE, you will see under music, some areas related to the band and choral programs, and PPE. This year, we had to, obviously, given our situation, provide those items to the music program in order to run the band and choral program. I will say, Ms. Late and Mr. Lamb have done a great job getting very creative and resourceful with the PPE and with the music program this year. And then you're going to hear more about the technology integrator across the board, all three buildings, a little later this evening. So I'm going to just, before we get into the pages, I just wanted to touch on enrollment, because I'm sure that is going to be a question when you see our supply line there right on the first page. And as you heard earlier, the enrollment has declined a bit at the middle school. Next year, I will say, I am concerned about the projection right now. The projection's at 352. And when you look grade by grade, that projection is already 8 students under our current 4th grade enrollment. So just as an example, the current 8th grades at 4th grade, is at 85. The projection's at 77. And traditionally, at the middle school, we see an increase from 4th to 5th grade. Traditionally, over the years, I've seen increases over the summer, registrations over the summer, last year being an exception, but we've seen that for the prior couple of summers. So what I did, just to break it down a little bit, what I did with our projection for next year was I took the actuals in each of the grades, 4 through 7, and then I looked at the projections, and the number that we came up with was 372, which I realized is a difference, from the projection you have in front of you. So just to recap each grade, so grade 5 is projected at 77. The actual currently is 85, and I bumped that up to 90. I am comfortable with 90 because I have seen over and over again those numbers go up from 4th to 5th grade, and I know that there are families in town currently that have students in other schools, private, charter, online, that most likely would return if COVID ends. So that's not 100%, but I'm pretty comfortable with that. Grade 6 currently is at, this current grade 5, next year grade 6, 91, and I have that at 94. Grade 7, this year's grade 6, currently at 93. I have that at 96. And grade 7, next year's grade 8, is currently at 88, and I have that at 92. So I did increase it, and I'm trying to be reasonable on that, realistic. And obviously that number is a moving target, but I just wanted to let you know where that 372 came from for supplies. And that is the overview for LMS.
On my projection.
Thank you.
Just
So
to clarify,
Dr. Jetty just clarified the question I had. My understanding is we go by what our projections are for the district, not what the principal thinks their projection is going to be.
and we presented this to the board over a month ago, and this is the first I'm hearing that there's a difference in projections. So I would encourage the board to stay the course with the numbers presented.
And what was the projection for LMS next year?
It's on the screen, 352.
352.
Like I said, I'm just a little... over 20 students over. So I'm going to start with supplies.
But Brian, the number's right.
What number's right?
352 times 40.
No, 372.
It says 372.
No, you just do 352 times 40, the math's wrong. The number there is for 352 students.
Yeah, the number represented in the notes equals the 352.
352.
So the number's right, 1480?
If we spend $40 per student. That number's right for 352.
Well, I'm going to start with supply line 610. And it can be either way. I'm reducing that line by $1,000. It could actually probably be reduced more, but here's my question, again, with agendas, right? 250 agendas at $1,000. We're in the electronic age, we have every student at LMS with Chromebook. And the use of those agendas is basically just writing in an assignment, which they all have notebooks, they're required to have a notebook for every single course. So here's my science notebook, I'm
I
gonna
thought
write
they had
down.
a homework calendar, Brian. Some of the grades have homework calendars that they can, it's been a while, do you know what I mean? That the kids can just click on and get their assignments for their grade.
On the Chromebook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To add to that, I would like to see, if we are a Google district, I'd like to see the kids being trained on how to use like Google Calendar to use their agenda.
that's my point.
So that we have it.
So, again, so I'm looking to reduce that line by $1,000.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Who's opposed?
Liz and me,
Okay. Motion carries 3-2-0.
or list makers.
On paper. On special.
Anything else on page 1?
Tom, I have a question. Can you tell me what supplies and consumables are under LMS foreign language?
What number is that?
That's 610 under supplies? Because that's only 8th grade and the budget's $1,400. While there are 198 students taking 4 different levels of Spanish at Campbell, and for 2 teachers combined, it's $435. If we use the Campbell High School model, she should only be getting $200, not $1,400. That's a huge, I don't understand what supplies and consumables are.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing out of the ordinary that wouldn't necessarily be used for another class. So I think we could, I think I can get more specific for you if you want. But I think there probably is room for some reduction there.
I propose that we cut line 610 under LMS foreign languages by $1,000.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion, sorry. That's a proposal in the motion, sorry.
I'll second the motion. Further discussion?
I'd like to hear more information, if you can get it for us from the teacher, about what supplies those are.
$1,000 for 1 teacher, more than 2 teachers at Campbell.
Yeah, I can get that information.
Yeah.
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 It just doesn't seem equitable.
Do those include textbooks, workbooks for Spanish class?
No.
Want to take back your motion, Liz, for the moment?
Until we find out what it is, sure.
I'll take back my second. Page 2. So before I make the cut, I have a question on LMS math. Graph spiral notebooks.
I thought we bought them.
I buy those every
I
year.
buy those every year. I've never seen a notebook, a graph notebook come home from the school. Never.
I believe they keep those in the classroom, and I believe it is also in the curriculum guide for math.
It's also on the
School supply list.
that they require us to purchase.
Because that's the hardest challenge to find those. You have to go to Staples to find those because they don't sell them at Target.
Target has them when they're on the
They sell
bottom
them.
shelf.
They sell out first at Target.
I'm going to make a motion to reduce that line by $1,302. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0-0. Page 3. And then on page 3, 610, it's listed, it's all PP
Yeah,
items.
that's all the music PPE.
So my next question, and you brought it up, Tom, you mentioned Project Lead the Way. So these prices you have in here, or what you have budgeted, are those actual quoted prices or cost?
Yeah, they actually go through the site.
Right. It's not just a little, I'm just curious if
Yeah.
that's actual or just
It is.
a guess.
Yep.
Page 4. Page 5. 6. Page 7. So, can you just explain 640 textbook replacement? It says,
Under library?
yeah, fiction, nonfiction books, including ebooks to enhance reading. So I guess it may be more helpful, can you tell us like what the schedule is for each level of class utilizing the library, how they use the library? And I ask that because from personal experience, I have 2 kids in that school right now that this year have not been in the library. So I don't know if they're going in waves or how it's working.
It's usually a little bit different, but in general, kids go in there sometimes through a language arts class, sometimes through our best block, enrichment block. They'll use the library, check books out. Sometimes after school, kids go in there and check books out. Throughout the day, sometimes it's after school.
So I'm not going to do anything right now, but if you can get back to me, and I'm not sure if they can do this, but I'm just curious that the books we bought this year, how often those books have been taken out so far? Because we were budgeted last year to spend $6,200 on books. So I'm just curious what the readership is and usage of the new books we buy every year.
Yeah, I can get a report on
Okay. So I'm
the
not looking,
circulation.
right, I'm not looking necessarily for all the books, but if she can narrow it down to what was just purchased this year and what the usage is. Anything else on page 7?
Yeah, Mary still here? I hate to harp on it.
Mike?
Yeah. Again, go through back to page, bear with me.
If you go back to page 3, you've got Scholastic Choices, 20 issues for $170, and another line, Scholastic Choices issues for $170, grade 5 Time Kids for $100. Anyways,
I thought we were using Newsella for all
well,
that
that's my
stuff.
thing, we're paying almost $1,200 for different periodicals to different classes. Then the library has $1,000 for periodicals, and then we're paying $4,000 for Newsella. We're spending $2,000 on paper periodicals, and then $4,000 on Newsella. First of all, I'd love to see all the Scholastic bought by the library, not by the grades, and then the grades can take them out of the library. You know, we have the same exact magazine, $198, ordered by 2 different grades, 20 copies of each. And I'm sure it just seems to me we need to go one way or the other, have somebody in charge of it.
Yeah, what has changed with that, with the Scholastic, is that they have online subscriptions that go with that. So for those classrooms, they're able to access those and you only have so many licenses. So if we did it,
But do we need, why are we getting that license if we're Newsella? We're paying $4,000.
so when we look at ELA, when we look at the curriculum for ELA, a large part of that is nonfiction text. So while Newsella is a great resource, it's not the only resource that we use. And those are protected. You know, not only the website's protected, but the resources, the nonfiction text in there are, you know,
Could we look at that friendly for, I won't make a cut tonight, but that's over $8,000 in periodicals for the.
There's
middle school.
Common Lit, there are other
That's a lot.
places.
Or
yeah.
close to 8,000, I shouldn't say over 8,000. It's close to 8,000.
And would it make sense to get a school membership or, you know, a school access, a school account, rather than by each grade level, each subject area.
Yeah, we can look at that. I don't know. We'd be, so for example, if we have a 90 licenses for grade 6, you know, those are specific to that grade. In the end, we're probably going to have the same number of licenses, but it's,
Yeah, I guess.
What grade is it?
Social studies is buying them, family and consumer science is buying
Yeah,
them,
See that.
physical education
Grade
is
6,
buying them.
grade 7, yeah.
Phys ed's buying them
Well,
also.
that, wasn't that when they were trying to make everything together, like have their,
Can you look into that, Tom, and get back to us on that?
yeah.
yeah, I can look into it. Yeah.
Thank you. So anything else on page 7?
Reading buying too.
Page 8? 9? And 10?
Nice.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments for Mr. Leckwine?
So it's either back to us before Tuesday?
22, 20?
2320.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that will bring us to Mr. Mitchell at EMS.
What did Corey just say? Corey, what did you just say?
2320.
2320.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As we go into the GMS budget this year, all of the increases, everything that's driving this budget is flat-based, but we are one school that actually is projecting an enrollment increase. So we look at, and I'm going to say conservatively, 23 student increase, just because, again, and I know has been alluded to, we know of somewhere between 40 and 50 students who still currently live in Litchfield, but are not enrolled in GMS and have indicated that it may just be a temporary. However, that's not reflected, so I'm just saying that the 23 number is a conservative number. So you'll notice that of the lines that have substantial increase, most of those are that flat rate and then showing the increase for the student enrollment. The other two lines that we'll point out, and it goes to a focus, is there. We are still trying to working stepwise to replace the furniture in the building. And the other thing the other aspect that drove some of the increases in the budget were just simply increasing cost of goods. And so, for instance, there is one line where we are looking to add stand-up desks to our classrooms. They're a good sensory tool. They're necessary, especially at the elementary level, to get into the bath. In last year's budget, they were put in to purchase 2, and the model, since it was the first time, the model that they used to build the budget up was just not high enough quality. And I'm not talking we're looking for great quality, but there are features to the stand-up desks that really make them effective. Having a kick bar, also just sturdily built. So based on last year's budget, the number that was in there, we could only afford to buy 1 of the quality that we wanted. We had put in 2, we could afford to get 1. So you see there's like a $500 increase in there. That's just to get to that higher quality. Additionally, we just need new furniture. Furniture in the building of our age, furniture tends to go in 2 different ways. 1 by usage and 2 by age. And you have both going. And so even though we do have furniture that we are not using this year in sort of the 30s building, that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be usable when it comes out. The fun example I like to give is that I was in a 4th grade class a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to the teacher, and I simply leaned on the desk, and the legs just like a sardine can out there. And these things are just going to happen. And so our hope is that if we slowly do this stepwise annually, switch out a few, it won't become that 1 year, we need all new furniture. We can just slowly kind of change it over. Additionally, and I will put the plug in too, as well as we are looking for the tech integrator eventually. And I would like to point out that while it may not show up on a spreadsheet, there is hidden financial value to that tech integrator where money can be found, because what it is going to do is enhance your investment in the technology that you've done. It's going to be used more. It's going to enhance money that we've invested for PD for our staff. It is going to decrease, or better, reallocate money that has been used for staffing in IT, where they can focus on that and you can have the IT repair. So it's really, it's a one position that captures a whole lot of things. And in there, it may never show up on a spreadsheet, but there is value and there is savings in there. So with that, I will cede over to you and we can flip through the pages.
Thank you. Like a recurring theme. Page 1, 610 supplies. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that by $1,724 to level funded to the 2021 budget.
Where was the increase to make it go up by that much? Is it just student driven?
Yeah, so you'll see that in those lines, you have the 6101 times 343, that's an increase, times 257. So it's all those lines are, and I can actually, if you'd like to know, the increase by enrollment.
No, that's fine. I was just curious if there was just.
Yeah.
A second.
Thank you.
Is this about agendas?
No, this is about agenda. They need
Just
them.
supplies.
Supplies in general. Level funded,
Because I will fight you on the agendas for the
especially at
kids.
GMS.
He can take the $1,724 anywhere he wants to. Further conversation?
Playing in his sandbox.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Motion
fails,
fails.
1-4. So if I, anything else on page 1? So my only question, the other question on page 1 under furniture, the 2 locking cabinets you're looking for, with the reduction or reducing of enrollment, I don't know if maybe did you search the other 2 schools to see if anyone had any extras like hanging around?
We haven't gone through that process now, but
I would say
I would just encourage, I mean, I'm not saying there are any out there, but if there are, we can utilize those and then reduce this line. to those 2
yeah,
cabinets.
we could. That's actually very specific to those 4th grade classrooms. Just the building of the rooms, they didn't have any built-in closets, so they were literally like cement squares, so you gotta find your storage somewhere.
Page 2,
I have one on page 2, the math, line 640, the textbook replacement for math. Tell me about why you need 5 additional math texts every year.
General wear.
What's that?
General wear.
General wear. But they're, the textbooks I thought were consumables. For math? So we order enough for all the students, but then we order 5 for more?
Let me look into that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I will definitely get back to you on that.
They are.
Yeah, yeah.
page 3. Four.
Oh, I have a question on page 3 under music instruction.
Yes.
Shipping and handling for $2,400. What are we shipping
And
and handling? It's underneath the Pearson Interactive Music subscription, but that's an online subscription. So I'm not sure what the shipping and handling refers to.
No, I'm sorry, that should be attached to the class supplies.
She's on page 3, under 610 supplies. Up at the bottom.
And that was based on the actual cost of this year.
The actual what?
The actual cost that we paid for shipping.
So it's $2,800 for supplies for the class, for the
Mhm.
students, right? And then there's an additional $2,400.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that broke down, but I will,
Yeah.
Was
check
it a
that in
piano?
order to find out.
Was it two
Remind them all pianos.
I will say that, like, this is just a speculation on that.
Yeah.
The things that we order in math, in music specifically, are usually large and take, you're talking like the boom microsticks, the
Right.
recorders, they're either heavy or they're huge. But I will find out why that number is
Okay.
so high.
Thank you. And I love that you just said boom whackers.
That's what they call it, they're called boom
I know,
micros.
they're awesome.
All right, my next question is on page 4, and goes into page 5. I'm a little confused as far as kindergarten and the numbers. So we're projected for 74 kindergarten students.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken, does that not trigger a 5th class?
I thought it was 76.
It's 76.
76.
Yeah, if I can go,
Oh, I'm not looking at one, I just didn't get the number right.
yeah, I can pull up the enrollment
It
paper
is
again.
76.
So at 74, you'd have average class size at 18, but you would have 2 classes over at 19. So 74, but 76 is the trigger number to go further.
Page 5. Page 6. So on page 6, line 734, I mean, it's minimal, but I'm just curious, why do we buy can warmers for 504 students?
It's driven by the 504 based on the student's disability required type.
Thank you. Page 7. And Dean, if I can ask you the same question. I take it on 640, are those new library books?
Textbook replacement? I'm sorry. I think my pages are off a little bit from yours.
But it's on the library, and
Yeah.
it's 640 textbook
640,
replacement.
yeah, textbook replacement.
Are those textbooks or are those library books?
That's the library line, so it is it's library books that are in circulation, it's as well as nonfiction readers, it's research type books that are put on carts. It also includes the online ebook, which has a per book fee, which we expect there too.
So same thing, are those, so the new books for students to take up? Could you see if you can acquire the same information, like what the distribution or use of those books so far for this year, the new ones that we bought last year?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, this year will be different because they haven't been checking out books. Is that true? Have they been checking out books?
They do have a checkout process where it's kind of, they let her know she can't deliver it, and then there's a box outside the library
Quarantine
that they
Okay.
return the books.
So the kids aren't checking out books on a regular basis?
Not a normal regular basis, but there are a number of students who are utilizing the library
Okay. So
to
the
check
numbers
out
will be
books.
skewed for this year.
As well as, for instance, at the beginning of the year, she always does the Great Stone-Faced
Yeah.
books where we have to do a mass order of all those books, and so those are kind of circulating throughout the school as well.
Okay.
But it's not at the regular rate of, you have library once a week and take out the book for a week.
Page 8. 9. And 10. Does anyone have any other questions? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have a total there for you? Yeah, do it next.
So it'd be 0. now bring us to curriculum, Ms. Quinlan.
What was the number on that one?
0.
The cut failed, I forgot that.
If I can just actually address something that came up in the last two as well. We used some of that book money this year to put into a program called SORA, which is a book rental service that they use in most of the high schools and middle schools across the state right now. They're starting to really transfer over to that. The problem that we've had is getting it set up on their end. It took some time. Our person, I guess, left, and so we got right before Brendan left, he got that paperwork set up on our end, and we're still waiting on that. So there has been a certain amount of this year's budget with the intent to use next year's library and media center budgets to put towards that at each building level. We're a little thrown off of that right now, so I just wanted to clarify that. All right, well.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm like, anyone was up by 30? No, that's not. Just to give a little overview, curriculum and instruction has stayed pretty level. For this year, my budget is up $257, which represents 0.15%. And I will tell you the key drivers behind that. The key drivers behind that are, in all honesty, when I came on board 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago at this point, my predecessor had purchased all of our programs the same year. I tried to break that up, so this year we are using those funds to start the purchase for our ELA and social studies programs that expire at the end of this year. Our math and science programs also expire at the end of this year. So there's a little uptick in my budget in the area of textbooks because we do have to renew our math program specifically. That is going to be a big line for this year. And social studies will be another area that we have to be doing the same thing. So that's the biggest driver in terms of the biggest increase, along with, you'll see, we talked about in some of the building-based budgets, Project Lead the Way last spring, right before COVID, they sent us emails saying we will be upping all of our programs effective September 1. So we got caught with that this year, so we have to make up for that in terms of next year's budget. So you'll see a little bit of an increase there to cover the costs of the programs at GMS, LMS, and as well as all of the courses up here at the high school. The only other area that you'll see a pretty significant increase in the curriculum budget is in software. That includes the Project Lead the Way increase, as well as we have included the purchase of Discovery Ed, which is an online resource that we have access to across the district. We've been working for the last year and a half with John Davidson, who is one of our budget committee members here, but with Discovery specifically, they've been wonderful in letting us pilot it, and we signed a contract with them at the end of last year, using a little bit of our additional tech money, but now it has to be built into the budget. So, and that's been a great resource. We've gotten some really great feedback from our teachers on that. So, that's it.
All right, thank you. So, my question's on 650, and you just touched on it, so I guess my question's for Corey, because according to the budget, the 21 budget was $33,043. My number that I got off from the drive that was first sent, Corey, is $28,643. software is $650. And maybe just mention that there's a big increase because of that, but looking at the numbers that are on the budget, it shows a $500 reduction. So if I look at what was initially sent to the school board,
That's accurate to last year's budget, so. Is there some adjustments to the notes on your part, or the things that came in and out of there that you recall when you were putting it together? I can go to last year's approved and see what was in there.
No, the only changes from last year, Project Lead the Way was up 3,000, but we took a chunk out of the benchmarking, progress monitoring software, and cover discovery. And that it should have been close to level. Yeah.
it's 32,543. But I have last year's 28,643.
That would be prior year encumbrance pulled in, because when we do it in the budget, we post it into that line. So the budgeting system pulls that over.
So this number's accurate, then it's on the paper budget.
So yes.
Anything on page 1?
I have a question. Sorry, that was really close. The math program,
Yes.
specifically K to 4. I'm wondering, did you sign a 6-year contract again?
We have not, we're just beginning exploration, I was not putting that up. I wasn't able to touch that with teachers right now.
Right, no, I get that, I totally get that. So,
And no, my plan is to, between ELA and math specifically,
Mhm.
get us to a point where they are unstaggered.
Okay, so how long,
They do a 1-year ELA and a 2-year math, something along those
okay,
lines.
so this
that
is
we
kind
can-
of a
Yes,
gap
I'm
filler?
trying to be a little more strategic with it
Yeah.
because all 4 programs in the same year is just not sustainable for,
Mhm.
A, for the budget, but B, for the
For the
teachers.
teachers, it's too much.
Yeah.
I agree, okay. So this is for a year, or,
I was hoping it to have a map
okay,
with this, and that's just based on preliminary numbers. Everything changes in October with most of our textbook companies. But it also depends on, right now, looking at our secondary, like 5th grade, we're contracted for another couple of years
right,
with Big
Right.
Ideas. But Big Ideas has been a successful program for our secondary group. So my concern in terms of exploration is more at the elementary level.
mine too, thank you.
Page 2.
Besides me,
I know. Page 2. Page 3. That will bring us to technology.
So if I may, I just want to address to the board, so you've heard the term technology integrator come up a couple of times. When I was presenting my overview, I did not address that, and I want to just take a second before Jason comes up, because he'll be really explaining this in greater detail to the board. But this is one of the things that I think could be an advantage that came out of the COVID situation, because it forced us to deploy the Chromebook devices in a way that we hadn't, and the remote environment really had us operating in a way that was unlike what we would use the Chromebooks like in the actual classroom. And so it really opened our eyes to what the possibilities are. You'll see as we work our way through this, we are identifying, kind of like reimagining how we spend some of the resources. So it's not necessarily a new ask outright, but what we are saying is how can we reimagine the resources that we're given in order to best address the one-to-one Chromebook environment. And now that we've had the one-to-one in place for a number of years, it's time to take it to the next level. It's time to really, and I love what the board is talking about when you're asking questions, for example, about agendas versus Google tools. That's exactly the conversation that we should be having. And I think as you listen to Jay tonight present and talk about the tech integrators,
Dan did a nice job of also addressing it, but it's really part of that bigger picture, bigger reimagining of the way we want to operate down the road. So with that, we'll have Jay come up and present not just tech integrators, but the rest of his tech budget to you.
Everybody, thanks for having me. So the big drivers in budget, you've heard about the tech integrators over and over again. There's also the full Chromebook 1-to-1 from grades 1 through 12, so implementing it at GMS. We're also looking at the student Chromebook upgrade being, moving to a different type of model, a model that will have a touchscreen and giving a little bit more functionality. We can open up more of the Android apps and have better connection with art classes and other classes, and we can use them in other ways than we have before. Also, the SAN storage replacement, in layman's terms, that's a big box in our server rooms that have a bunch of hard drives in them, and all of our servers will run off of that large box. And what that allows us to do is to virtualize and have a smaller footprint, which saves on electricity, saves on hardware replacement and software, a whole bunch of other things. So we're looking at that too. And then also at LMS, replacing the lab in room 4, the Windows lab in there as well. So to go further into the tech integration position, so for those of you that have never heard of it before, try to think of it as a technology teacher for the teacher as well as the students, and it's somebody that's in the classroom all the time. So to go back on what people have said before, to really leverage the technology that we do have, there is a lot of technology in Litchfield, and we can go and utilize it in a better manner. So, for instance, going back, hearing certain things like the tardy slips and the agenda books. There's a lot of things that sometimes we don't see because we're not always in the classroom, right? We're not always in the way that the buildings operate. So we can find those things out, but even more than that, this is going to be somebody that's in the classroom constantly. So it's a dedicated expert that is well-versed in integrating and deeply integrating technology into the school. So it actually touches on the pedagogy, going and integrating technology into the whole root system of technology, going and raising the bar for our students, showing them different ways, and what it does is it helps the teachers, because the teachers are masters in their craft, right? English, math, whatever, but they're not necessarily masters of technology, right? So we use Chromebook, we train them on this Google Drive, this stuff, but to really ingrain and integrate better into the classroom, into the lessons, into the curriculum. That's what this person would do. So it's not going to be it's not like an extra technician. They're not going to be preparing Chromebooks or anything like that. They're not going to have time for that. They're actually going to go and be deeply ingrained in the educational process and bring technology to the forefront so that we can give our students the skills that they really need when they start college, if they go out into the real world, into jobs and whatnot as well. So what people that are hiring are looking for, what colleges are looking for. So that's kind of in a nutshell what that is. Did you guys want to go?
All right, thank you, Jason. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Four. Five. Page 6. No questions for Jason? Thank you very much.
All right, can you just report the overall?
What the budget is? Yeah, the technology budget is budget this year for 431,508. Next year, a reduction of 45,145 to 386,363.
Just think it's important when you go through a budget that quickly that people understand it's because it's been cut already, so there's quite a bit of reduction there.
No, it's been cutting a lot of it, it's just flat from last year.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that will bring us to special services. Dennis.
All right, good evening, everyone.
I'm sorry. There you are.
So the special services budget, right now is based on our current student population of 239 students that receive a variety of special education services, whether it's speech, teacher of the visually impaired, teacher of the deaf, occupational therapy, physical therapy, so on and so forth. So as you can see in the highlights on the presentation, the overall budget is down $75,952. That's due to change in professional services, out-of-district tuition, and some other areas of the budget that have come down. A lot of the things that are requested are based on IEP needs of students. So I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Devin. We'll start with page 1. Page 2.
Devin, I had a question. Oh, it's on page 3.
Is it the woodshed?
What's that?
The woodshed?
No, it's not the woodshed. What?
What? There's a woodshed?
No. It's about,
They do.
okay.
All right,
No,
page
my-
2. Let's start with page 2.
We're waiting for you to say
Page 3.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
All right, I have a question for you, Devin, on page 3. The testing protocols seems to be quite a significant increase over the last few years. Why is that?
So we have 2 kits that are currently in use, and they are at the end of their lifespan. So we need to replace them.
Are you doing the online ones? Because I can tell you, doing it on an iPad is a lot easier than paper, doing your testing. Is that anything that's feasible?
There's some aspects where we switched to that.
Good.
But there's some that we're still doing the same assessment protocols.
So now I'm going to ask about the woodshed.
Where are you
What's the
seeing
woodshed?
this?
It's a request.
Oh, I see it.
It's
It's
a
a
request for
preschool.
preschool. They do a lot of the thematic-based units, and so they have a lot of
Stuff.
centers and stuff. And when there was a switch out to the portables 2 years ago now, it crammed a lot of stuff into their space. And so, looking at how things are stored, we need to make some probably shifts for safety purposes. They do try to store what they can in the 30s building, but it's not always accessible. So that was their request, is to be able to.
But, so my question stems because we're budgeted this year for $2,400 for a woodshed. So I'm just wondering why we have it this year and next year. That number doesn't belong there. So it looks like we already have
So if
$2,400.
it's in there this year, I don't have this year's in front of me, then go ahead and
Cut it.
cut it.
I'll make a motion to cut $2,492 from the woodshed.
Storage shed.
Storage shed, I like that better.
Okay. What's it? It's a wooden storage shed.
Chip up.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Anything else on page 3? Page 4? Page 5?
The it's line 733, furniture additional. Can you explain kind of what a modular desk system is? And
Sure, so for our student support services program, we have additional students that will be coming up in accessing the program, and so we're trying to create individual workstations and kind of redesign the overall programming. Plus the furniture in the room currently there's pieces of it that are broken.
It was bad 5 years ago. I don't even want to know what it looks like
That
now.
need to be repaired. So the idea is we can pull everything that's in there out and then
replace the furniture.
Page 6. So can you just explain the increase in, is it 230? 330, I'm sorry, professional services?
on page 7.
Yep.
So those are for.
6, I'm sorry, page 6.
Yes.
So that is for, we're having to have some of our special education forms translated for parents so they can understand what it is that we're sending them.
Thank you. Page 7. So on 7, on 330, school psychology.
So those are for contracted professional services.
Are we still actively trying to find a school psychologist, or are we just going to continue using the services?
My plan for next year is to contract with school psych. The increase is for an agency that I've utilized for some students to really increase the wraparound mental health services in order to maintain the student in the district. So that's what the increase specifically is for that.
Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. And page 11. And we'll say, Devin, that it's nice to see the
Decrease.
special services budget come in less than the previous year.
It has happened before.
But thank you.
You're
492. The wood chip.
All right. Well, that concludes our presentations, and I'll open it up if anyone from the public would just like to make any comments. If there's any public input. Seeing
No
no one,
questions, Carrie? Nothing?
seeing no one is coming forward,
Copious notes.
I did.
we will be going into a non-public session, RSA 91-8:311. Before that, I'd like to say good night to everyone and thank you for coming. And hopefully it's been helpful to the budget committee to at least see some of the process, really give you an opportunity to, hopefully we don't have to be repetitive. You know, I'm sure you'll have questions, but you don't have to repeat the same process. So thank you for coming.
Mike, should I hang on?
One second, all right.